I have to be all right by myself to stand a chance at being, I guess, all right by anybody else. What's in a lot of the lyrics on the album and even in the album title is evidence that I don't find it easy all the time to feel calm and settled in with who I am.
James, thanks very much for doing the music book session. It was fantastic.
Pleasure.
And I'm very excited for readers to see it. So can we start by talking a bit about your fourth record, Changes All the Time, which came out in October 2024. Yes. So tell me a bit about the background behind that record and when you started writing it.
At this point, I guess sort of 4 records in, some songs seem to come from like years before. You know, you're collecting, I'm writing all the time. And I think a couple of these songs were written like 2019, 2020. And I guess, well, that was a strange time. I made my 3rd record through the pandemic and just a difficult sort of hazy time. But they didn't sort of make, or maybe they were written just after the 3rd record was made or whatever. But there was a few kind of collected from that time. And then the rest of them were written a lot closer to making Changes All the Time in 2023, sort of building up to when we recorded in November, December.
So certain ideas you'd sort of been sitting with for a bit or working out in your head and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And as most of them were written, like I say, it was in the months leading up to recording, and I was getting, I guess, a clearer picture. Take the word clearer very lightly. And then 3 of the songs on this album were written, this is the first time I'd ever done this, they were written while we were making the record, while we were recording, which is always quite a sort of frightening thing, because essentially my brain, and maybe sort of, you know, where I come from and how I grew up, it says, this record making is very expensive and we've only got so much time. What are we doing wasting our time writing a song that might not even get used? But
one of them you wrote on the very last day of being in the studio or something?
Yes, yeah, one of the ones that I played for you guys, Some People. Yeah, we sat and it was this beautiful sort of sparse song and sort of lyric and notion, and we wrote that. And then I recorded it in the stairwell of Rack Studios. We wanted a sort of very kind of raw and echoey space, and we didn't want to sort of fake the echo like you can, and that's very normal to sort of use reverb or whatever. Anyway, yeah, we did that. Up All Night was written while we were making the album, and Talk was written while we were making the album. But I say take clearly with a kind of pinch of salt, because really it's a little bit for me like kind of herding what feel like the best songs all into this moment.
I'm trying to work out how they all fit together.
Yeah. And it felt like, as I sort of sat with these songs, you know, I was thinking, well, what do I call this album? What am I saying here? And I recognized that in most, if not all of them, I'm grappling with the concept of change, which is something that is impossible to avoid.
But particularly that period, I think. So you got married.
Yeah.
And you had a kid.
Had a baby, and a lot of sort of big real life stuff. Also, something as simple as I've been doing this professionally at this kind of level for 10 years now. I signed a record deal in 2013.
How old were you then?
22.
Right.
So, of course, I'm ancient now.
I'm the same age as you, so
there you go.
Please be careful.
All right, I'll be careful. I'll retract that, and I'll say that we're young and vibrant people.
Yes, with plenty of years to come.
Yeah, for many years to come. But yeah, change is always coming. And I find it, pretty daunting at the best of times.
There's a lot of questioning on there, like about your own sense of like purpose, I think, and
definitely
where you're at, I think, both in life and in your career. Maybe more in your career than in life, because I think personal stuff.
Just throughout, really, to be honest, it's hard when writing songs not to go into the deepest, darkest places. Makes these moments tricky, because I don't want to talk about any of that stuff.
No.
But I love making music as a therapy and as a place to investigate what I'm struggling with or just what I'm dealing with.
Do you ever like tussle while you're writing with the idea that like people are going to actually hear this?
100%. That's never easy. Yeah, that's never easy. But I guess one of my favorite things about songs, not my own, but just songs in general, is how open they are to interpretation. Someone can feel something from a song that they're going through in their life that the song isn't about.
Was there anything you were listening to when you were making the record that you connected with, not necessarily like direct influence, but resonated with you as you were writing your own like music?
Good question. I found myself going towards some more lyricless music, some classical stuff.
Anyone in particular?
There's a Samuel Barber tune that's very famous called Adagio for Strings, which I've loved so much.
What moves you about it?
very literally the sound and the note choices. There's also a soundtrack to, there's a James Baldwin book called If Beale Street Could Talk. They made it into a movie. I read the book a while ago and then watched the movie in whenever it came out, 18. And then since then, I've gone back now and again to that whole soundtrack. It really moves me. A few soundtracks, actually, the Interstellar soundtrack and the story of that movie. I was able to sort of access my own emotions somehow easier and quicker when listening to that stuff. And I found it inspiring because I didn't busy my brain with the words and how I would interpret them or what I felt like they meant. I would just feel, like when you asked that question about Adagio for strings, it's very literally the note choices and the sort of crescendo and all of that. I had the band in with me for the first time I'd taken my touring band into the studio.
And you had some cool collaborations on this record?
Yeah.
Noah and
the Lumineers are people that I toured with and known for a little while now. And they really emphasised and extended the kind of potency and power of the song Up All Night, I think, because we wrote the song in the studio without those guys. And it just felt like a really good time. It
sounds like a good time, yeah. Thanks. It's like a really nice energy on it.
Thanks. As a record, we thought, how can we heighten that experience? Well, let's see if we can bring not just anybody, bring friends in, bring people who we hope will get it. So we sent them the song and they reacted like, oh, this will be lots of fun. I wrote one of the songs on there with the great Brandon Flowers, who's...
How do you guys know each other, or did you know each other?
Mutual friend who told me a while ago, actually, in passing, because I think this friend of ours from my record label was asking if I would write with other artists. And I said, yeah, absolutely. But it came from him saying, because he'd worked a lot with the Killers, he said, Brandon always wonders why he doesn't spend more time or get more opportunities to write with newer artists than him. And I was like, I put my hand up.
I volunteer as tribute.
Please sign me up. So we made it happen, and that was.
Did you meet up in person? Or?
Yeah, in Utah, where him and Ronnie from the Killers, they were there together. They were in like a big house in Park City in like a sort of ski town.
Okay.
A lot of snow.
Right.
Gorgeous views in this sort of ski lodge thing.
Do you ski?
I do not. Okay. Or at least I haven't yet. And they weren't there to ski as far as I'm aware, but they had this great double height hallway. They had a bunch of drums set up in there. It was all very Led Zeppelin vibes. Mm-hmm. And down in the sort of basement living room, they'd set up a whole sort of recording desk and studio and speakers and everything. And we were just there living in that space for a few days with them.
And you just get to know each other, chat?
Yeah, and since we've very much stayed in touch. And he's a hero. I'm not sort of ashamed to say, as privileged as I feel to know him in any capacity. When I was 13 or so and starting to play live in bands and play rock music in some capacity, somewhere, guitar,
it's
drummer.
Peak Killers era.
It was always affected by the Killers. Yeah. You know, they had such an impact on what me and anybody around me was doing as far as trying to be in a band. So it was an amazing experience to suddenly be in such kind of close proximity and collaborating.
Yeah.
But we were an easy distraction, and I can really feel Brandon and something Killersy. These are big words, but he's quite prolific and quite profound. Watching him writing in the room, we were working together, but we had moments where he'd kind of get out his phone where he'd scribble all kinds of different lines, lyric ideas, and we'd record a bunch of chords going around on a loop, and he'd stand on a mic and just spit these things out, and they all sounded just very, I'd love to write that lyric into a whole song, and that one and that one. It was amazing. He wasn't afraid. You're trying to get to a point with any art where you're less and less afraid to just express.
And did that kind of embolden you to be a bit more?
Definitely.
Yeah.
You want to be able to express and believe in what you're doing, and just not be afraid that it's anything other than worthy, because there are no rules, are there? So,
yeah. As we talk about Dogfight, which is the last song on the record, which is one of my ffavorites, as I said. You. And you co-wrote that with Holly Huston.
Holly is a wonderful writer.
Yeah.
An artist.
She's brilliant. And was Gabe producing?
Yeah.
Did you have another co-writer on that?
Phil Plested. Phil is a legend. I love Phil a lot. He's had lots of success with lots of different artists, particularly I think Lewis Capaldi, and I've written a few different things that I've released over the years with Phil. And he was really, I will say respect to Phil, he was in the room with two artists. And in his own right, Phil has the capacity he's toured and played live, but he held a great position, not even as a mediator. I'm trying to say that there were moments when I felt like he was present, but letting me and Holly lead the writing. Run with it, exactly.
Yeah, and it feels like, I don't know, just to me it feels particularly pertinent at the moment, I think, with everything like Liam Payne's death, and just, I think there's been quite a lot of music industry hand-wringing recently, and hopefully a bit of looking inward or whatever, but that is very much seems to pertain to your experience of coming up, being the wunderkind and the new rising star kind of thing, and you were very much, the spotlight was on you for a very long time in a very intense way.
Sure.
So,
You mentioned Liam. I knew the tiniest version of the kind of experience he had. I think, but it's a lot. Whoever gets however much of that, it's such a lot. Dogfight was about looking inward. It is about looking inward. It's about recognizing a need to, I suppose, work on myself and accept that I'm a work in progress, and that can be, there is something a little triumphant that I'm trying to express in that song, but it is also expressing struggle.
Yeah, it was all the doubt, I think, and grappling with a sense of self-worth that I think is very easily placed in the wrong hands. Correct. And I think narrative shifts, which I think you, again, experienced, again, from being, I think, what's the lyric? It's like, is it blazing fire?
Oh, yeah. Set me on fire, I was your blaze of glory. I was your favourite story, now I'm burning out.
Yeah.
That's, if nothing else, it's all kinds of things. There's so many different emotions going to every lyric in a song, but in that moment, I'm growing up a bit and holding this new perspective on how puppy-like I certainly have been in the past and still can be in many ways.
Do you think, because I was reading an interview that you did with us actually in 2015, and you're, like, to me, you're already quite cynical. You're talking about the Brit Awards and obviously saying it's very nice to be nominated, but also the idea of that ceremony, I think you felt like everyone's being herded into. And you said it wasn't exactly like a zoo, but not unlike one.
Cynical.
So
I was definitely holding up some guards and afraid, and I still have the capacity to do that in a big way because it's still daunting.
But do you think that's protected you in a way?
That sort of cynicism or fear, or let's say those guards, yes, to a degree. I tell you what, separate to and connected to that is the kind of need to keep your feet on the ground.
Which I imagine is very hard when people are telling you you're amazing, you're huge, and
because eventually that will quieten down, and
they find someone else.
Yeah, and it might come back. That might come back again and again. It might keep going away and coming back. It can happen.
But you can't spend your whole career like waiting for that,
or even trying to live in it. I think lots of people have experienced what I've experienced at younger ages, but I was still quite impressionable. Between 22 and 25, my life changed a lot. And suddenly a lot of people were telling me I was very good, like, simply put. And in the moment, it was a pretty great ride. And I've certainly experienced versions of it since then, but I'm older and in some way a bit wiser. And I think coming down from that and trying to understand and be like at peace with, even for a moment, who I am, like in my own skin. Dogfight is about that, grappling with that.
Yeah.
Because it isn't easy, at least in my experience. I'm very keen to be all right by everybody. That's sustainable.
Yeah, and you find that, I think, because you've got this thing where you seem to exist now slightly outside of all of the noise, if that makes sense, in the industry. And I think you've done very well to position yourself outside of that, because I think for a lot of artists, they remain in like that eye of the storm kind of thing.
Sure. I guess if that's the case, however I feel about that and however accurate that is, I'm trying to say I have to be all right by myself.
Yeah.
To stand a chance at being, I guess, all right by anybody else. Does that make sense? Yes. And I think what's in a lot of the lyrics on the album and even in the album title is evidence that I don't find it easy all the time to feel calm and settled in with who I am. I'm not completely sure the sort of all the origins of why that is. And I know, interestingly, that it inspires me to make music and create and make art and write and perform. And
so it's not like you're rejecting it outright. It's more like addressing and acknowledging that it's there.
And I feel like lately I'm having another sort of chapter of really growing up with it again and maturing with it again. And that's like a bit like a shedding of an old skin and a sort of stepping into a new. And that's a lot.
Yeah.
At least deep down, whether it looks like a lot on the surface or whether anybody cares or not. I guess I make art to grapple with and express that. And if anybody can relate, then there's the beautiful bit, because then we come together and share music and get to have live experiences. And
which you've got happening, like 2025.
Yeah.
This big arena tour.
Yeah. Well, it's the first UK arena I've ever done. I've done a very small handful of arenas in my career. I'm very excited. Going to Wembley in February. Yeah, thanks. And
check out this rumoured underground swimming pool.
Yeah, right. That's what they're saying. They're saying it's a bit frightening down there. But I will check it out with lots of people around me, lots of company, so I don't get too spooked.
Take some torches
and some torches and some
yeah
shields. Yeah, that'll be fun. And a handful of different venues that I've been to before and ones that I haven't been to before, and we're going around Europe as well. We've got lots more touring to announce in 2025. I'm very excited about it, and more than ever, I have struggled not to want to put every single song from this new album in the set list. I've been working on that. For a moment, I couldn't get it.
4 albums worth now. It's a lot.
This is tough because I want these shows to be for the fans, and I want them to. As a fan of live music, I want to go to a show and get the stuff I hope for, and it can be a bit of an ask to give so much new music. So I'm trying to strike a balance there.
Okay.
But
the album would have been sitting with people for a good amount of time now, so hopefully
this is true.
I'm sure fans will know all of the lyrics by the time.
I'm going to test them a little bit. Yeah. But there's going to be a whole bunch of earlier stuff in there as well, and all the I guess, for want of a better way of putting it, all the obvious ones will be there because me and my fans have an unbelievable time every time that we share those oldest and most favourite songs. So I'm very excited for it, but I never found it harder trying to choose songs from a new album than on this one.
Good struggle, I think, that one.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. That's for sure. But and I can't wait. I really can't wait to get the new ones up there. I've been saying this actually. I was working on the set list the other day, and I think I've got there now. But I realised that I've been saying. People say, "What can we expect?" And I say, "Well, I'm going to try." I think I even maybe made this up one time just to have something more interesting to say, which is dangerous. I said, I'm going to try and reinterpret some old ones. Oh. And I've actually worked out some ways in the last week or so to do that.
Well, like a kind of a more upbeat version, because Paolo Nutini did that. Right. 100 Club. It was just amazing. He did Pencil for Lead, but it was like this really dark, almost Cure version of it. It was great.
I love that idea. I love that approach. So I'm in my own way. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Awesome.
So we'll see how that goes, and we haven't even done rehearsals yet. So if they've got to make it through rehearsals first.
Can't wait for the punk version of Let It Go.
Exactly.
Cool, amazing. Well, thanks very much for the chat.
Thank you.
It's been good.